This week, the Supreme Court seemed poised to fully overturn Roe v. Wade. Here to comment is conservative Justice Amy Coney Barrett.
I don't understand why you need abortion, because you can leave a baby anywhere in the United States. You are a murderer if you have an abortion, but you're not a murderer if you put a baby in a bag in a mailbox, and that tracks and is good to me.
SNL mocking Supreme Court conservatives who seem ready to overturn Roe as the fight intensifies. Top Republican Mitch McConnell saying a federal ban of abortion is, quote, possible if Roe is overturned, saying the quiet part out loud. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi today saying Republicans will, quote, seek to criminalize abortion nationwide. This week, Senate Democrats will push a bill to make Roe into federal law. Republicans are ready to block it. Protests growing, activists rallying outside the homes of Chief Justice John Roberts and Trump appointee Brett Kavanaugh. Tonight, more information leaking out of the court. Sources telling the Post the majority of 5 conservative justices to strike Roe remains intact. The battle unfolding in the states. Tennessee Republicans passing a law making it a felony to distribute abortion pills by mail, despite federal regulations allowing it. Idaho Republicans reportedly considering banning emergency contraception like Plan B. Mississippi's Republican governor refusing to rule out a similar ban in his state.
You've just said that you believe life begins at conception. If there is legislation brought to you to ban contraception, would you sign it?
Well, I don't think that's going to happen in Mississippi. I'm sure they'll have those conversations in other states.
You're not answering the question.
As is always the case with things, well, that's always the case. There's so many things that we can talk about.
In Michigan, if Roe is overturned, a 1931 law banning abortions would go back into effect. It makes no exceptions for rape, incest, or medical emergencies. But the state's attorney general, along with 7 brave county prosecutors, are speaking out, saying they will not prosecute abortion cases. I talked to one of those frontline prosecutors, along with former Biden campaign advisor Alencia Johnson, when we're back in just 60 seconds. Joining me now is Oakland County, Michigan prosecutor Karen McDonald. She says she won't prosecute abortion cases if Roe is overturned. And Alencia Johnson, a former senior advisor to the Biden campaign and founder of the social impact agency 1063 West Broad. Karen, I'll start with you. Thank you so much, first, for your bravery. And I want you to explain to the audience why you said, look, I will not enforce this almost 100-year-old law at this particular point if Roe is overturned. What is your sort of logic, your moral logic behind that, and your legal mindset behind that?
Well, first, from a practical standpoint, this is not at all reasonable, and it makes absolutely no sense. I'm the highest law enforcement official in our county, which is about 1.3 million people. We have serious violent crime. We have an uptick in gun violence. We have human trafficking, sexual assault, children being violently abused. Our murders are up. Why we would spend precious resources that we have available to us trying to hunt down medical professionals. And by the way, that's not just doctors. It's right. Anyone. You could arguably, even an office assistant who enables or furthers any sort of procedure and even disperses medication is now going to be prosecuted for a felony. It makes absolutely no sense. So as this person who's in charge of my number one goal is public safety, a decision to prosecute those cases and criminalize these people does not further that goal at all. And second, from just a policy and moral standpoint, one, this is not going to eliminate abortion, and it's not even going to lessen abortion. It's just going to make it less safe, and it's going to create this caste system where women who have resources and can go to a different state or procure that procedure privately will do so, and women who don't have resources won't. And then finally, I firmly believe that a woman's right to control her own reproductive choices is essential to her equality. And so for all those reasons, that is not something I will do, regardless of unfortunately, Roe v. Wade, maybe it looks as though it's absolutely going to be overturned, which, by the way, I cannot believe we're here. You know, it's been the law of the land for nearly 50 years, and the opinion just eviscerates all of that.
Alencia, Karen makes a very, very good point. Attorney General makes a very good point that, look, this is a waste of time. It's a waste of public resources. And she actually has a precedent here of there are lots of prosecutors, local state prosecutors, you know, certainly city attorneys who said, look, we're not gonna investigate lower drug crimes. It's a waste of time. We're not pulling kids in for dime bags anymore. That doesn't help people. From a branding standpoint and a political messaging standpoint, Alencia, how can prosecutors across the country who have this same stance, how should they market this to people? Because lots of folks out there are worried, and they don't all have state attorneys who are as brave as Karen McDonald here.
Well, I think she's making a really good point that we are not talking about as much as we should this criminalization of people making very personal medical decisions. And that's the conversation that we should be having, especially as, you know, the GOP and conservatives like to talk about how much crime has risen. There are like all these problems and they want to talk about the police. And yet they are still talking about how they are okay with criminalizing people for planning their families instead of addressing some of the issues that are actually really underpinning some of the violence that we're seeing in communities. And so I would like to see more prosecutors, people like my co-panelists, who are actually on the side of families, who are on the sides of women who know that they will be facing so much opposition, along with, and I'm glad you all raised this, the providers, the volunteers. I worked at Planned Parenthood for 6 years. In order for people to get abortions now, while it is still legal, let's make sure that your viewers know that, there are volunteers that have to walk people through picket lines. There are volunteers who have to give money and give rides to people to get access abortion care. These people will be criminalized as well. And so we're going to have jail cells full of doctors and lawyers and people who are planning their pregnancies and their families. That is not the America that I want to live in. And that is a dystopian future that is actually becoming a reality. It has become the reality for so many women of color in the South. And that could happen throughout this entire country.
I want to play some audio. It's a soundbite here, Karen, from a fellow Michigan prosecutor, Peter Lucido. He has a different opinion on how he's going to handle a potential overturn of Roe. I want to get your thoughts on the other side.
I have a warrant division. My warrant division's been instructed, if the crime is on the books, why am I picking and choosing which crimes I'm going to enforce and not enforce? That would be not giving proper notice in the legal world of what is a crime and what isn't. I don't have a right to turn my back on the law when I'm supposed to uphold it.
Karen, I'm sure there's some ivory tower institutionalist right now who's saying, look, he doesn't necessarily agree or disagree with the law, but aren't we supposed to enforce any law that's on the book? What would be your response to that if someone were to challenge you and say, hey, you don't have to like the law, it's your responsibility to enforce it?
It's my responsibility to use my discretion with all of the experience and expertise that I have gained in the over 20 years of experience I have as a judge, an assistant prosecutor, and a lawyer in private practice, and make good choices and be a good steward of the taxpayers' resources and money. We choose not to charge crimes every single day. We have crimes on the books for making infidelity a crime, sodomy a crime, cow at large. There are so many crimes we do not charge, and we do that because I have pledged to the people in my county that I'm going to focus on serious violent crime. And I want to add something else. This is not a sensational detail meant to really stir up drama. In Michigan, there is no, on the 1931 law, there is no rape or incest exception. I work every single day with victims of child sexual assault and domestic violence. What we are saying is that if you are raped, you were forced, and you did not consent to sexual intercourse, you are going to be forced to carry that pregnancy to term. You are then further going to be dependent on the person that you are trying to get away from. We work to do the opposite, to give these these women who are brave to come forward. How are we supposed to do that when we are essentially sanctioning rape and incest? It's opposite of everything I'm supposed to do as a prosecutor and everything I believe as a mother and as a woman. And I think the majority of people agree with me. I really do.
Alencia, the majority of the people do not want Roe versus Wade overturned. The majority of the people still think that abortion should be something that people have access to. Even amongst Republicans, there are many Republicans who privately still want Roe versus Wade to be available. What should, if you were having a conversation right now with President Joe Biden, what would you be telling him and Pelosi and Schumer right now that the message should be? Because right now, people who are concerned about their abortion rights, they don't feel that the Democratic Party has done much for them. A crazed religious minority of Republicans have been able to snatch this right away while the Democrats control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. What's the message Democrats should be giving to people right now?
Well, and I hate to say this, that as a Democrat, I actually agree with that frustration that we have not been on the offense about abortion rights. We have actually allowed for this extreme conservative yet powerful movement define how we are going to talk about abortion care and essential health care that is a constitutional right in this country for women and people who can get pregnant. And so I really need for President Biden, Leader Pelosi, the leader of the DNC, I need every single leader in the Democratic Party to get as strong and as fired up as my former boss, Senator Elizabeth Warren, was last week, because this literally is the fight of our lives. And activists have been saying, abortion is the floor. It's not the ceiling. As we have seen, they have taken this as the opportunity to talk about banning contraception, to talk about who you can sleep with, who you can get married to. This is actually just the beginning of what will happen when this minority rule gets what they want. And I'm sorry, Senator McConnell told us what he's going to do. So there's no reason that we should be playing the game of, oh, let's not get rid of the filibuster. Let's not go too hard against Republicans. As soon as they are back in office and in power, they're going to strip away all of those protections, and they're going to pass a federal and national abortion ban. And we've got to get ahead of that before it's too late.
Karen McDonald and Alencia Johnson, thank you so much for sounding the alarm to the audience tonight.